The hidden glow of the abyss. Far beneath the restless waves of the ocean, where sunlight could no longer penetrate, lay a realm of shadows and mystery. This was the abyssal plain, a vast expanse of the seafloor where silence reigned, and the water carried an almost unbearable stillness. To most it seemed like an empty void, yet it pulsed with quiet wonders that defied the imagination. Amid the ridges of submerged mountains and the valleys carved by ancient currents, there clung a tiny bioluminescent coral to the side of a jagged outcrop. Its branches were delicate and sparse, glowing faintly with a soft blue hue that rippled through the water like the flicker of a distant star. The coral's light wasn't grand or blinding. It barely illuminated the stones at its base, but it was steady, casting a small oasis of light in the darkness. The coral had grown in this lonely spot for as long as it could remember. The abyss, with its quiet vastness, seemed to stretch forever, and the coral often wondered if its presence mattered. Larger creatures passed by, giant squids with their undulating arms, ancient sea turtles gliding silently, and sleek sharks cutting through the water like shadows. These beings moved with purpose, their presence commanding attention, while the coral remained rooted and unnoticed. Occasionally, the currents carried whispers from far-off places. They spoke of vibrant reefs bursting with life, where sunlight danced through shallow waters and schools of brightly coloured fish darted among the corals. The tiny coral could only imagine such a world, one so different from its quiet home. Still, it kept glowing, even when the darkness seemed endless and its light felt small. One day, a wandering anglerfish appeared, its eerie glow casting strange shadows across the seafloor. The anglerfish was a creature of the abyss, its light a lure to attract prey, but tonight it wasn't hunting. Instead, it hovered near the coral, its wide, curious eyes fixed on the faint blue light. "Why do you bother to shine?" the anglerfish asked, its voice deep and resonant, echoing in the stillness. The coral hesitated. No one had ever spoken to it before, let alone asked it such a question. "I suppose it's just what I do," the coral replied, its glow flickering slightly as if unsure of its own answer. "It may not be much, but it feels right to let my light shine." The anglerfish swayed in the current, considering the coral's words. "But here in this darkness, where no one sees, does it truly matter?" The coral's glow steadied. Even in the deepest darkness, light has a purpose. Perhaps I'll never know who it reaches or how it helps, but that doesn't mean it isn't needed. The anglerfish lingered for a moment longer, its lure swaying softly before it turned and swam away, disappearing into the shadows. The coral watched it go, unsure if its words had made any difference. It felt small again, a solitary light in an immense, uncaring ocean. But it continued to glow, its soft light unwavering despite the uncertainty. As time passed, the coral remained rooted, unaware of the quiet ripples it had set in motion. The anglerfish had carried the coral's words with it, sharing the story of the glowing coral with others it encountered. The tale spread through the abyss, whispered among creatures that rarely spoke, and carried upward by currents to those who ventured closer to the surface. One evening, the coral noticed a change in the water. The current felt warmer, gentler, as if it carried something new. Tiny creatures, glowing faintly in hues of green and gold, began to gather near the coral. They were plankton, drawn to the coral's light like moths to a flame. At first there were only a few, their soft glow mingling with the coral's blue. But as the minutes passed, more arrived, swirling around the coral in a living dance. The once dark abyss became a symphony of light, the plankton's luminescence weaving together in patterns that rippled through the water. The coral was awestruck. It had never imagined that its small, steady glow could create such beauty. The plankton's light spread outward, illuminating the surrounding rocks and casting faint shadows into the distance. For the first time, the coral felt the weight of its own presence, not as something small or insignificant, but as a spark that had ignited something greater. The abyss, which had always seemed so vast and empty, now felt alive with possibility. The coral's light, though faint, had drawn others to it, and together their glow transformed the darkness into something luminous and full of life. The coral didn't know how long the plankton would stay, or if they would return after they drifted away. But it no longer questioned its purpose. It understood now that its glow was not just an act of being, it was an act of giving. Beneath the pressure of the ocean's depths, in a world far removed from the sunlit surface, the coral rested. Its light remained steady, a quiet beacon in the shadows. It no longer needed to wonder if it mattered, for the proof shimmered around it, carried on the currents, and reflected in the glow of the plankton. The abyss was still, the ocean vast and deep, but the coral no longer feared the darkness. Its light was a reminder that even the smallest glow could banish shadows, that even in the quietest corners of the world, light could find its place and shine. And as the stars far above blinked faintly into the night, the coral continued to glow, softly, steadily, with the quiet strength of something that had always known its purpose.